So we have heard also that the 80-year-old patient of Jörg could be a candidate for annuloplasty as well. So I would invite Volker Rudolph to go on stage. Volker, you do both replacement in study and repair with annuloplasty device at your center. Why is annuloplasty still essential in your eyes for the treatment of tricuspid regurgitation patients?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for having me here and for this not so easy question. But let me start with the pathophysiology of TR and look at this very nice 3D data from Italy, where we see for acquired forms of TR that we have, of course, differences related to tenting, whether depending on whether there is increased afterload, like in pulmonary hypertension or left heart disease. And we have no such tethering in atrial fibrillation, but what you can see that in either form of acquired TR, annular dilatation plays a major role. So by doing annuloplasty, first of all, what you do is you address the main problem potentially of tricuspid regurgitation, which cannot be such a wrong thing. And then one further aspect, I think, is if we talk about lifetime management of patients, is that with this therapy, you really do not affect the valve so much, and you have no barrier to future treatments. And also, it's a very standardized procedure. We have CT planning, and this is something I think we learned from TAVI, that you really benefit from such an approach.
What are Volker, in your opinion, the differentiator of the Cardioband system for the treatment of TR patient, and maybe also some of the anatomic selection criteria?
Yes, so I mean, if we look at selection, I really want to draw your attention to this paper that actually Fabienne led from the PCR focus group, where you see the proposed classification of tricuspid regurgitation. And if we look at these etiologies, then certainly Cardioband should be used predominantly in patients with atrial tricuspid regurgitation, such as in a case which Jörg has just shown. And this algorithm is also from the paper I just mentioned, and here we can find annuloplasty, of course, among secondary TR etiologies, and there are more or less two scenarios where we can use it. So one scenario is the patients we all want to have. It's like not a too large gap, central location, and only mild tethering. And of course, you could argue you can just do edge to edge here, but I mean, I would say annuloplasty on the one hand gives you, in such patients, a very predictable result. You can be very confident that you go out with a good result. And the other thing is, of course, I mean, as we move into earlier cases, annuloplasty might play a larger role there as it does at the moment. And this I termed for the remainder of my talk standalone annuloplasty, but then we have, of course, these cases which I think we cannot properly address at the moment. And we wrote here that in very advanced disease, large gaps, replacement is an option, but we know that many patients get turned down because annuli are just too large. And here, I think we can extend the spectrum of patients we treat with annuloplasty. Also, we have to be fair. We have to tell the patient that probably you don't get a perfect result at the beginning, but then you have these future options open. And these are two cases of standalone annuloplasty, atrial TR, really predominant annular dilatation, and you can really be sure you get a very good result in these patients if you look properly at the leaflets. This here is a different situation, of course, coaptation gap of 15 millimeters, and I would say if the annulus is too large for replacement, then there are no good options that we have at the moment. And this is what we discussed with the patient and said, okay, hey, we do a Cardioband, but the result will probably not be optimal. And This is the, let me go back, this is the result at discharge. So you can see that the coaptation gap got smaller, but there's still severe TR. So we told the patient, okay, you probably might have to come back for edge-to-edge repair. And so she came back, 82-year-old lady, 1 month later, and she said, I'm actually doing quite well. And we looked at the echo, and there was a further reduction of TR. And so we just watched and waited. And after 1 year, TR was almost eliminated. And I mean, this is also an answer to the question with regard to RV function. If you look on the left side at the right ventricle, you would say this is not a very good RV function. On the right side, we see a normal right ventricle. So this is something that is really amazing to us. So more in general with regard to patient screening, this is what we want, atrial TR. This is, of course, more complicated if you have so severe tethering. But you have also to look for restricted septal leaflets, which occur quite often. And these are patients who are better suited for edge-to-edge repair. Leaflets or leads are usually not a problem, just as for any other therapy, unless you have proper impingement of the leaflet. And I already mentioned we need CT planning, and what we look for in CT planning is the annular size, of course. You want to cover the whole distance from the anteroseptal commissure to the distal coronary sinus, and you want to make sure you have enough tissue for the anchors, just as shown here in the left image. If the annulus is too large and you can't reach the distal coronary sinus, we know that efficiency goes down. And of course, if, as an example shown here, there's not enough tissue between the hinge point and the RCA, then you will run into problems if this occurs at too many sites where you want to anchor.
So I think you have some data to share with us that has been presented this morning.
Mm-hmm. So I think this was presented this morning. I just want to highlight a few facts that I think are really interesting. So one thing is the complication rate. If you look at, particular mortality, there was a lot of discussion about RCA interference with this procedure. But if you look at 30-day mortality, it's 0. So it cannot be that bad. And this is our experience as well. If you look at the 1 year survival of these patients, you see it's very similar to what we see for the other therapies, and certainly better compared to the natural course of this disease. Again, we see that we get with this therapy sustained reduction of TR after 1 year. So 73% of these patients are in TR1 or 2. And we also get a really dramatic improvement of New York Heart Association functional class, with 92% being in class 1 or 2 after 1 year. And
you have your own experience as well you want to share with us.
Yeah, correct? So this is the data from our center. We have now, I think, 68 cases, and this is data from 63 cases. And we see that we treat patients who have really severe TR, so massive and torrential in 72% of cases. And we can reduce this at discharge to 71% maximal moderate tricuspid regurgitation. And for some of these patients, we also have functional tests, which we did here. And as you can see, we get an increase in 6-minute walking distance, which is really substantial. And also, and this is really a very valid parameter, it's the submaximal exercise duration. So patients have to do the test twice. So you first test for maximal exercise capacity, and then you see how long they can stay on submaximal exercise. And this gives you a measure of how well they will do during their daily routine. And here we see a significant improvement with a very low number of patients as well. So, really to summarize, I think you saw the data which show it's a safe procedure. It's a procedure that can help us to extend or expand the spectrum of patients we can treat. I think we should not think that one therapy will fit for every patient in TR. And it's great to have more than just one option. And I think annuloplasty will play a role there, particularly at the moment if we have extensive annular dilatation. So thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have time for a discussion. Stefan, would you come and join us? There is one question coming from the audience about the timing of intervention, because we slightly approach that issue about when is it the right time to propose to offer the patient a treatment, whether it be a replacement or a cardioband. Do you believe, let me start with you, Stefan, that for replacement there are certain patients that are not good candidates? It's too late in their the story of their disease to expect a good outcome. Or do you believe that we could treat any type of tricuspid regurgitation at any stage for any patient?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question. And I think, unfortunately, at this point in time, we probably see patients at a very advanced stage of the disease, because the awareness is not there to send patients for evaluation of an intervention at an earlier stage. I think this is an evolving field, a little bit in analogy to what it may have been with TAVI 10 years ago. Having said this, I think patients that have a life expectancy that is less than 1 year, patients that have comorbid conditions that are more important than the tricuspid regurgitation, patients that have another factor that comes in, they certainly should not be evaluated for the therapy. But otherwise, I think there is no reason to withhold the therapy at this point in time. I think the field will be very quickly informed by evidence from randomized clinical trials, and I would believe that if we see a survival benefit that is analogous to what we have seen in TAVI versus medical treatment, then the question, it will be much easier to convince everybody that you should move actively forward. As it relates to the replacement, I think we still need lots of evidence, I think in two directions. One is what is the optimal antithrombotic regimen and how long? And then the second one, we certainly also need to understand, just as with other valve types, the durability. But the same applies also to the repair techniques.
Okay, please.
It's just I like I'm sorry. I'd like just a quick comment on this. I'm particularly fond of the idea of repair of valve repair, generically speaking, and we now have very interesting solutions to offer to our patients. And I've also been looking at the workflow you were showing before, saying that certain patients will be candidates for TER or for annuloplasty. And then we have those patients which have a group of characteristics which makes them unfavorable for these sort of therapies. And usually those patients are actually in a more advanced stage of disease. And we're usually educated to the fact that the right ventricle handles very badly a huge change in pressure balances. So I'd like to hear your comment on, for these patients, which usually have large volume overload, that have high pulmonary pressures, if we reduce suddenly the amount of regurgitation to none or trace, how do you feel that most patients will handle this, and how can we improve patient selection for those? Thank you.
Okay, so first question about the fact to go from torrential to zero regurgitation in very frail patients with a end-stage disease, extremely depressed right ventricular function. Maybe Philippe, would you want to address that?
Maybe we start with clinical reality. We don't see right heart failure in repair, so that's full stop. In replacement, it will be certainly more interesting and more likely that it could happen. We see sometimes that the RV function drops but recovers, as also shown here in that case. So there's certainly a potential for remodeling. And then your comment about RV pressure and RV dilatation, I do agree when you have a very dilated RV and you add some degree of pressure that these patients might be at higher risk. But when you have an RV operating already at a pressure of 60 or 70 millimeters of mercury, why should it be a tremendous problem if you add another 3 or 4 or 5 millimeters of mercury? So I would be more worried maybe in those very dilated RVs operating on a low pressure because they cannot generate any pressure anymore than those who operate on a high pressure.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the right ventricle
very,
also.
very shortly.
Yes, I think you should not forget the septum. The
Very
RV
briefly.
is part of it, but a large part of the contractility also comes from the septum.
So I guess you have one question for Volker, and then
Yes,
we need
Volker,
to
just
move
one
on.
quick question. The surgeons are doing annuloplasty and edge-to-edge treatment. So we have this opportunity as well, doing Cardioband and Pascal. Is that something you are doing? Is that in which situation that could be a good option?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, this is one of the strengths that you can offer these options to the patients, but I must say among the almost 70 patients that we treated, we did it in two cases because we didn't have the feeling that we would have to do it in the other cases. So it's good to have it